Hi, everyone. This is Billy Higgins. I was the editor on Death Blood 4, and I'm sitting here with the director, Chris De Pretis. You may hear me call him CDP. That's what we call him with our little gaggle of folks. And I'm sitting here in his very impressive office filled with VHSs and collections of DVDs and books on film that I think rivals the cinema library at USC, which is where I went to school. But anyway, without further ado, let's watch the movie and talk about Death Blood 4 and what it was like being the editor on the film. So go ahead and play the movie now. So just really quick, I have not seen the movie since we premiered it at the Vine Theater in Livermore.
Which was September 2019.
Thank you. Gosh, has it already been that long? I was going to say 2 years, but that's almost 3 years.
Yeah, we're approaching 3 years of the premiere, and it came out on Prime the following July, so it's been public since July of 2020.
Yeah, available on Amazon Prime Video if you're still looking for where to get it. And I got to tell you that this is one of my favorite parts of the movies. I remember sitting and watching this as an audience member and actually laughing out loud because I love hearing Death Blood over and over and over again. That was a very, very, very nice touch.
Yeah, and that was a cool voiceover actor from Nova Scotia, who we found online, and he was just perfect. He totally got what we were going for.
That's great. I actually did not know that because when I was cutting the film, a lot of this wasn't filmed yet. A lot of the voices and sound effects were temped, which means that we didn't necessarily have the voice for G7 yet. We didn't have the sound effects for the Death Blood. I kind of made some up. I downloaded clips off the internet, just kind of threw in there just so we could have a complete cut to watch. So a lot of this stuff I hadn't seen until the premiere at the Vine Theater. Now I'm curious, who plays JB right there?
That is Ali.
Okay.
But I think we have 5 different stand-ins for the alien, so that one there is Ali.
Yeah, I was wondering, is there a list of how many people played JB as an alien? Because
I think they're all in. I think there's actually a special call out for them in the credits.
Okay, great. Because I played JB as an alien once. I guess Allie, your wife did,
Yep.
And I'm almost wondering if everyone had a turn playing JB at one point. Of course, when he's in human form, he's played by Zach. But
Well, that's a good point. And Ignacio and our another buddy Ian also played him. As we go, we'll have to kind of count. So we're at 1 right now.
okay,
That's Michael driving.
yeah, I remember that. Wasn't this the first night of filming?
You're right. That was the first night.
Yeah. Oh, I could actually talk about this scene coming up from an editing perspective. This was actually a challenge because there's a lot of cool special effects in here. And I think when you're editing a film, you got to think about, not only what's going to look cool, but what's going to push the story forward. And it was kind of a balancing act to sort of decide, okay, how much of do we want to see this woman coughing up blood? And because you want it to be gross but not too gross. You want it to be scary but not too scary, and you also don't want to bore the audience by lingering on something too long. But it was kind of tough because you just kind of want to show off all these cool effects because you guys did such a great job putting them together, and especially this with the meat, the death blood infested meat crawling through the sink. I almost wanted to sit there and watch that for a long time, but we didn't want to have the shot linger too much because then the audience would get bored.
Yeah, and I think you did a good job allowing us to creep into the movie a little bit, where it's not, I do think the pacing is right.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it there.
Yeah, and I think that those are the kind of challenges that come up, and those are the challenges that are fun about filmmaking. Now, I remember this in the script. The script called for awesome rock music plays as we fly into the sink, and here's our awesome rock music.
Which was found by Len.
Okay.
which is cool.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he found it on a one of the distributors, and he was the one.
And who was it? Who was it again who performed this?
I don't remember. I'd have to look at the back. I'd
Okay.
have to look at the credits.
Don't know where he's. I think also what's really cool about a project like this, but I hear about this happening on big Hollywood productions too, is when you have people in the cast that contribute to the behind the scenes part as well. And of course, I think Len was credited as a producer as well.
Yeah, you're right. He was, and actually he didn't come on as a producer. He just came on as an actor. But then over the course of the movie, he provided props, locations, like I said, music. And at a certain point, we just realized he's producing the movie.
Yeah.
To some extent for us. So.
And also, I think what's great about his participation is that a lot of times you'll talk about a breakthrough character on a TV show. For instance, in Seinfeld, it would be Kramer. On Family Matters, it would be Steve Urkel. I definitely feel like for Death Blood 4, it was Len Lofrisco as Chief Beef.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It seems most people that I speak with walk away feeling that Len was their favorite part.
Yeah.
Chief Beef was their favorite part. I probably feel that way to a certain extent too. I think he nailed it.
Who actually developed the video game?
So Dar did the little UFO, and then I did the landscape and all the background and stuff.
Cool. Yeah, this is another scene that was not filmed when I was cutting the film. I think in the initial cut it opened with Tessa's introduction was her walking down the street, which we're about to see in a moment.
And that's Nick Asbill doing the radio.
All right. Who also played a very good Death Blood victim at the very beginning of the movie there.
Yeah, he's patient zero. Apparently from the first Death Blood.
So not only was I editor, but I was also script supervisor and first assistant director here and there. So I was on set quite a bit, and I do remember the experience of shooting in downtown Pleasanton, which was a lot of fun. I mean, of course, it did get stressful sometimes because you just never know how the public is going to react when you've got filming going on. Oh, and then of course we cut to Oakland here.
I think it pieces together pretty seamlessly, the Pleasanton and Oakland.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know when you watch a film when a character walks off one street and then onto another if they've traversed 50 miles or 100 miles in real life, whereas in the story they're just walking right next door.
Yeah. And you were definitely on set for these days, for the video room days.
Yeah, I remember being very sleep deprived on this day. I had taken my kids to a USC alumni event the night before, and they kept me up pretty late, so I was very tired. And I remember Tyler, who plays Joe Video, commenting on my, he's like, "Billy, you seem really not in a good mood today." And I'm like, "Sorry, I didn't get much sleep."
Well, we also, our deal with the video store owner was that we just had to be in and out of there before the store opened, and I think the store opened at like 11. We had to be out of there by 10, so we were getting there at 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah. Now a little bit of editing trivia here. That scene where Sean and Tess are doing the faces at each other, we jump what's called the 180-degree line quite a bit. But I think that this is an instance where it's okay that that rule was broken because you're so vested in what's going on, you don't even really notice it until some jerk like me calls it out in audio commentary. Now, I was wondering what... I forgot, did Sean have any acting experience prior to this?
I know that he's done a lot of improv, and I believe he's also done some... at that point, that he had also done some film and video acting, but I remember writing the part for him thinking about his improv skills.
Yeah, and I just remember not only being on set but watching the cut, just being really impressed with how he portrayed the character and everything. Um, yeah, it was great. Oh, and I gotta tell you, every single time I watch this movie, I get hungry for pizza.
That's good, actually. That's a Papa Murphy's pizza that we're cutting right there, and then there's like some Costco pizza. But there's a variety of different pizza in this, but not all of it actually looks super. I mean, after a pizza's been sitting around on set for so many hours, it doesn't necessarily look. But I think part of the goal, you should want to eat pizza when you're watching this movie. Maybe if nothing else, if this movie makes you hungry for pizza, then that's the thing we want to.
It has the opposite effect of Spaceballs. In Spaceballs, you see Pizza the Hut and makes you never want to eat pizza again. But here, you just want to eat more pizza. And we had pizza on set, of course, that we could eat, and I just never got tired of it. Even though there's a line in the film about, "Don't you ever get tired of eating pizza?"
Yeah.
I remember when we shot this. This was after. How many days did we shoot in the kitchen that played the pizza shop?
I think it was just a day.
Yeah.
We had to pay for that location, but this was the end of that day, and we had turned off all the fans and the AC.
Yeah.
And this was in the middle of the summer of 2018, so that kitchen was hot.
Yeah, I remember I had a tire blowout on my way to set.
Really?
I was late to set that day because I had a tire blowout.
I don't remember that, but I would say good for you that didn't become a thing on set. I don't remember that.
Here comes Elia playing Scary Larry.
Sean Don. Yes, sir. Who prepped dough today? There's enough flour spilled on the floor to make a large pizza. And this. I found this in the sink. Now I know you.
Now, is Scary Larry based on anyone in Pleasanton?
I never met the person, so it's not the character isn't based on anybody, but I did take the nickname from a DMV driver, like test guy.
Oh, okay.
There was a guy who would test, kids my age when we were all kids in high school to get your driver's license. And apparently he would yell at them and stuff, and they called him Scary Larry. Yeah. I never met him though, so I couldn't say the character is based on him by any means. But I did steal the nickname because it's so cinematic, I think.
And here's your old apartment.
Yep, and all those fish are dead.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think what's really fun about this film, and I say this even though I didn't grow up in the Tri-Valley area, I'm from another part of the Bay Area, Sonoma County, and I think the film got a lot of attention for this, is that it's just such a great postcard for Pleasanton and the surrounding cities, and just those little things that you borrow, like the Scary Larry nickname and all that good stuff, made this a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was definitely, particularly partnering with Dar, who's born and raised in Pleasanton, and I think that it was definitely kind of an expression of appreciation for that town.
Yeah, another editing thing that I want to talk about right here. So another thing you have to decide when you're doing an edit is, of course, how much to show, how much to not show. I could see maybe a studio executive or someone being like, why do we have to see her, undress and turn on the shower and all that stuff? Let's just keep the story going and just move on from that. But you want to have scenes like that to kind of build tension, because if you've never seen this before, you don't know, okay, is Cindy going to get attacked, or is something going to happen? And I feel like that scene with her taking the shower was important to keep in there as it is, because it builds that tension, and you kind of are left wondering, okay, is something going to happen to her? Because anyone who's seen a lot of horror movies knows that shower scenes, characters that take showers tend to not survive.
And also, as a note, you built that entire news clip.
Yeah.
You remember that? And you got that all turned around early enough for us to shoot these scenes practically.
Yeah, I think what was helpful there is I have experience working in the journalism industry. I worked for the Wall Street Journal for a couple of years, and also I worked at the USC Journalism School for a number of years, so I got a lot of exposure to what news graphics and the look and feel, how that's supposed to go down. So yeah, thankfully that was easy to pull off.
And I do remember we had to film those sections at the green screen studio at the very beginning of production so that we would have them in time for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
We could have done it, the other way and not done it practically, but I think it's nice that we had them.
So this did not exist when I was editing the film. I think what I did is I stole a shot from Independence Day or something like that and plopped it in there as a placeholder until you guys filmed this.
And this stand-in is a guy named Ian.
Okay.
Who was in high school at the time. He attended the film club that I hosted at the coffee shop.
So how many JBs is that now? 3?
I think that's number 2.
Okay.
We definitely have you and Iggy coming up.
Hey, Space Lady.
Madonna, don't call her that. Sarah Shane. Disappeared.
Yeah, another thing about the postcard of the Tri-Valley, Stephanie Scribner, who plays Sarah Shane, she was Miss Contra Costa County, wasn't she?
She was.
Yeah. Now she's expecting to be a mother.
Yeah. Yeah, good for her. Congratulations to her. Yeah, and I think, the dream sequence, I know obviously after we got the edit from you, there was a number of effects and color and different stuff like that had to take place. But I think the dream sequences pretty much exist almost exactly how they were passed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, morning. Good morning, Cindy.
Yeah, so we did not have G7's voice when I was cutting. I think as many people who played JB, there's a list of people who played G7 when we were on set. I think you voiced him, Michael voiced him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Michael was the voice in the early edit, right?
Yeah.
And then Josh Berger eventually became the final voice.
Right.
Which was cool.
And another fun note of trivia, G7's actually sitting right here with us. He's up on the shelf. That's G7 right up there, isn't it?
That's him. Yeah, that I was given that TV for like Christmas, I think my freshman year in high school. And with it, I suddenly had the freedom to like watch anything I wanted to watch because I was no longer on the family TV with all my younger siblings around, and I think a lot of that film journey began on that little 13-inch TV.
Yeah. This was another moment that stood out for me in the script. I just love her roommate. I love the character because she just will spew out this techno babble that doesn't make any sense at all, and all the characters just nod like it's supposed to make sense.
Yeah. Well, and I love technobabble, and especially the way that the 80s treated computers.
Yeah.
Particularly a movie like Weird Science, where, Weird Science, but also, what's the one with Matthew Broderick where he changes his grades? Is it War Games, or is it...
Oh, that was
or no, it's
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, it's Ferris Bueller where he changes his...
Yeah.
But there's kind of like this idea back then that computers can just do anything.
Yeah.
People didn't know. And I kind of wanted to play with that, where somebody who knows technology can just create anything, because you're Scary Larry bleeding out of the eyes.
Right. Yeah, this was another one that was kind of an interesting one to play with in the editing room. How much do we show him, dry heaving into the sink and spilling blood everywhere? And that's where he turns, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I like the death blood noise that we eventually settled on. We tried a lot of things. I know at one point it was kind of more like bats, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But we ended up with this sort of beehive sounding thing, and it took us a while to find something that we liked. And even when we picked it, I wasn't sure. But now, watching it now, I kind of feel like, yeah, I'll take that. I like it. And then this is Courtney doing this music.
Okay. Yeah, Courtney Glickman, who
who plays Vicky.
Yeah, she's also a singer. I did. That was great on set. All the different songs that you played on your phone to get Tess to dance. Like I think you had,
We had Beyonce at one point.
yeah, you had California Girls by Katy Perry.
Yeah. I always like this where she's right there where she squirts towards camera.
And she's cleaning with the exact compound that JB needs to drink, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, I'm so sorry, Sean. I didn't see you there.
Don't mention it. I just wanted to bring these by. Found these in the lobby. I figured someone might have forgotten.
Oh, Mr.
I also admire Sean as a character, the way he handles this whole thing, you know, because he's essentially asking her out, and she says no. He handles it like a pro.
You shouldn't call him that. Mr. V was supposed to leave early to go pick up a pizza.
Yeah, and I do remember this was tough to shoot because next door there was a dry cleaner.
Yeah,
You remember that? And they would turn on the racks and the clothes would go moving around their little train track. And so we never knew when we could get good sound or not. So that was kind of a pain.
yeah, it's unfortunately the type of thing you have to deal with anytime you film on location, especially when you're shooting outside. You never know what the wind is going to do. You never know what the traffic's going to be like, and that's just part of the reality of doing it.
I guess Larry might have cut his hand or something. Speaking of which, what happened to your
That was a cool location. That had to be my favorite location.
Yeah, and it's really cool that they let you film there. Anytime you're making a movie where you don't have a lot of money to spend, whatever you can do to up the production value and find a location that will let you film in that where you don't have to do any production design because everything's all there. I mean, look at all those stacks of VHSs and DVDs, especially in this day and age where video stores are so rare.
Yeah. Yeah, there are not a lot of them left around here. At the time I found 2. One of them said no, and then this guy said yes. And that was cool.
sounds great. That'd be lovely.
I guess I correct her, but she didn't say no. She said maybe if she can get her babysitting gig early. Oh, and whose arm is this again?
This is mine. Yeah, this is my arm.
Yeah, and didn't we have a lot of debate on whether we had to actually get Tyler into that dumpster and film his real arm because we weren't sure if it was gonna play seeing
Well,
your arm?
Yeah, and it really, I mean, my arm is much smaller than his. But we were there, the dumpsters looked right, so I jumped in, and then later on we just kind of, I think it was just low on the wish list.
Yeah. Oh, here's our cameo from executive producer Mitch Eason.
I said garlic. Get me some more water. Extra ice.
And this is another thing too. Anytime you're going to film in a restaurant, that presents a number of challenges, especially if you live in Los Angeles. I remember when I was living in LA, trying to get any restaurant to film at, because it was LA, they'd be like, oh yeah, well, we've got all filmmakers knocking on our door wanting to film here, so we'll charge you $2,000 a day so we can shut down a restaurant while you film there. And I think it's really great that this restaurant lets you film up here. Obviously the challenges are different in the Bay Area, but still, and I think too, I like it, you're kind of establishing that maybe Chief Beef gets to eat in this restaurant by himself, like gets special treatment because he's a police chief. Because I think one of the things that stands out when you're making an indie film is if you're doing a restaurant scene and there's nobody else there, or you try to populate it with a bunch of extras, it can play off as really phony.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, we did get lucky with that spot. I do enjoy Chief Beef. Oh, and then here's Wilcox's intro.
Yeah,
Hawkins.
it was really, really hot when we filmed at the Pleasanton Ridge.
Yeah, that was another hot day, and I felt bad for these guys. I mean, Len, not only is he in a overcoat, but he's wearing a leather glove.
Yeah. And that's probably the number one thing that actors have to contend with. I've done things where, I filmed something in LA and it was freezing cold. The one day in LA it was freezing cold. My actors were freezing their rears off. But then you got the opposite, where you got actors dealing with the heat. So sometimes being an actor isn't just about getting the performance across. It's about dealing with the elements, dealing with the weather.
I'll admit that this was one of my that was one of the more stressful days of shooting at the Ridge.
Yeah, I remember. It was a lot of fun, though.
And then this is Morgan's voice over McCartney's shoulder.
Yeah, I remember McCartney standing in to play the cop, and I think that was a good choice because, and I think you said this before, a lot of things that'll stand out in indie films is when you have people playing cops and their uniform doesn't look right. You know, they don't have the right accessories, they don't have the right kind of badge, and that can stand out. And this was a good solution to just have his shoulder show up. And I think I voiced the cop when we were on set.
I think you did, yeah. Yeah, because you were script supervisor, so you would have been reading the...
Cindy came and got me right after she called you.
Next door at the pizza shop.
No, the comic shop.
I did a podcast
Sean.
with these folks
Sean.
called Overlook, and it was a fun podcast. And the thing they asked me was, where is it that there is a video store, a comic shop, and a pizza store like right in a row?
Yeah.
Because they thought it was real, and they were disappointed to learn that it was all fabricated.
And I think probably back in the day that probably was a lot more realistic.
Totally. Totally.
Who would do this?
I don't know, but downtown Pleasanton I feel like is pretty
Cindy,
well populated with walkable places. You know, you got a pizza shop that's, you got Gain 90s who
Yeah.
you know, is pretty close to a lot of things, but I guess you're right, you don't have a comic shop.
Not
or a
anymore.
yeah, right there.
We used to have a shop called Heroes and Villains on Main Street in Pleasanton, and we actually filmed in there to get establishing shots before we filmed for Death Blood, but before they closed. Here's some more technobabble stuff that I like.
Yeah.
It's a poker.
And all this e-waste
I whipped a couple
was thanks to Nick
Plug it in.
Asbill,
Oh, great.
who was just getting rid of vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. So
Heartbeats. Hey, nothing living will get within 100 feet of you without you knowing. I got a jet.
Of course, anytime you establish something like that in a film, it means it's going to be contradicted in the next couple scenes.
right.
Okay, now here's another appearance of JB as an
Oh.
alien. Who played JB there?
Good question. Was that you?
It might have been. I actually don't remember.
I don't know either. Yeah, I don't know who did that one. Good question.
Maybe it was me because I was there, but I don't recall.
Yeah.
But was that JB number 3 or number 4? No.
That would be number 3.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess that's the mystery JB, unless it was you.
Sir, I swear, I saw it. Step aside, kid.
So I remember this scene very, very well. I remember Wilcox was commenting on me switching into first AD mode because we had the rest of the crew down the hill sort of at our base camp,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to make sure they were quiet to not mess up the sound. So every single time we did a take, I was like, all right, take 2 is up, quiet on set. And it was like, Wilcox is like, boy, this guy's like a slave driver. And I'm just like, I just, not trying to be mean, just want to be sure we don't ruin your takes, considering it's hot and there's possibly rattlesnakes close by. And thankfully we did not encounter any, because I have an irrational phobia of snakes.
No, you're right. And I wasn't even thinking about rattlesnakes, but when I look at it now, it's like we're just kind of trudging through off the trail and stuff. We could have found some.
I was looking for them. I was on alert. And I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want to freak anybody out.
And then early on, I think this was a movie called Slipstream with Mark Hamill and Bill Paxton, and then we switched it out for Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah. I think it's cool that there are movies out there that are in the public domain, so it's okay to feature them without worrying about copyright issues.
Right, and that was the thing, is that I was pretty sure Slipstream was public domain, but then before I put it up on Prime, I kind of
Hello?
got nervous, and I thought, well, I know Night of the Living Dead isn't public domain, so I switched them out.
Yeah. Night of the Living Dead, of course, is classic, because anytime you talk about Harryhausen style zombie movies, that's where it comes from.
And that's you.
That is me. Can you tell? I do remember thinking to myself, whenever I did play JB or do the inserts of his hands, I wanted the experience to feel as slimy as possible, so I would drag my fingers over whatever I was touching.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think there's actually a lot of acting in JB's hands for those scenes, and I know that we also soaked them with water each time we sprayed them down with
Yeah.
water
It was a nice touch.
to get that glisten.
Oh,
And we filmed that at your parents' house, was that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, all this was at my folks, and that was we filmed there like on a Friday night, and then the next day we did a Saturday all day there,
Right.
and the next day was the pit.
Yeah.
Because it's funny enough, the interior of the house is where she's babysitting, and then the backyard and the porch are the Portal Guardian's house. So the house kind of plays two parts in the movie, and all this is still you, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think this was me.
And then that right there is Iggy doing the hand, because we didn't do the hand until, I don't know why we waited. Why did we wait?
Well, we didn't actually have that shot when we did the first cut. I think you
you're
guys
right,
filmed
yeah.
that later.
I think you're right, because I think we had some people look at it, and it was confusing as to whether or not, like, that this guy had changed from a alien into a human.
Yeah.
So we added that shot to kind of re-emphasize it.
I love this moment. The new Scary Larry's such a badass. He's gonna take your Coca-Cola and dump it out on the floor.
And you were here for this night, right?
I was here. I was there, yeah.
That was a fun night.
It was a fun night. And I love that gas station.
Oh man, I love it too. And they keep talking about tearing it out and building there, and I always just think I'm glad that we captured it on film. The owner was super cool too. But I remember that was a fun night because we kind of had it. You know, it looks sort of empty, but we actually had a lot of crew members there, and then there was like kind of a little like audience of random pedestrians just hanging out.
Yeah, it was a night where the nightlife was hopping. There were people out and about, out at the bars, going to the pizza places. We even got a visit from a random person who was hanging around the set causing commotion.
Yep.
Thankfully we managed to get everything done in spite of all that.
Yeah. And I remember there being this little kid, and he asked what we were shooting, and somebody told him Death Blood 4, and then he was standing there on his phone for like 20 minutes trying to search the other 3 Death Blood movies before he said something, and somebody told him that there were no other movies. I could see his face. He was just like, so frustrated.
Yeah, the that gag has paid off quite a bit. I remember when I first announced that we were working on the film on social media, a bunch of my friends like, "Oh, cool! Where do I get to see the first 3?"
no, I'm not going anywhere with you.
Yeah.
Get behind me, boys.
That's Mitch's kids, right?
In the orange is Eli. The other boy is his buddy Greg.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Get away from me.
Please, get out. She gave me this.
This scene always reminds me of the scene in Big where Tom Hanks runs out of the house after his mom finds
Oh,
him.
totally. Yeah.
Was that intentional?
I'm sure it's. Well, I don't think it was. I definitely think that's a subconscious.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because we definitely grew up on Big, and that is a great scene when he's in his underwear and she's freaking out.
So I was not here the night this was filmed, but I do love this scene. I think these guys pulled off the whole, 80s horror movie trope of a bunch of teenagers or young adults hanging around, thinking they're badass and everything like that, not knowing what doom is coming their way. They just pulled it off magnificently.
Yeah, and this was always Night of the Living Dead. So originally she was watching one movie and they were watching another, but then we figured, it's probably on TV, so they're all watching the same movie.
Oh, there you go. Another harken back to the 80s, back when people actually watched the same thing as it was what was on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I do kind of miss that. There was a more communal...
Is this the residence of Sean Sanchez? Yeah, I'm Sean. Sean, I'm Detective Hawkins with the PPD. This is Police Chief Anthony's Beef. I was wondering if we could take you downtown for a few questions.
This was a...
What's this about?
This was a tough scene to get through because Lennon Wilcox just kept laughing, and poor Sean was actually really sick that night,
Oh,
and so that took us some time to get through this. But this was fun, and this was at a home rented by a bunch of girls. One of them, who we know is Shelby, who is one of the girls in this group,
mm-hmm.
and they just kind of opened up their home and let us film there. The Impala,
Yep.
which kind of, has a police
I
car
love this
look.
shot. I love this shot.
Oh, this is actually one of my favorite tricks, because right here Larry is not sitting in a car.
Right.
He's sitting on a chair. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah. And I think what's fun about those things too is that having to explain that stuff to the actors, where you're telling them to act in a certain way, like, hey, you're sitting in the car, like, but I'm not sitting in a car. Like, well, don't worry about it, we're gonna make it look like you're sitting in a car. And they're like, okay. Well,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a trust game that goes on there.
So you see Shelby is kind of dead center in the screen right there. This was her home.
Okay.
And for a while, Missy Castro, it was her scream in there.
Okay.
But eventually, Mitch did some sound editing, and I think he found like a kind of a stock horror scream, which was cool. So
All right.
he swapped it out of there.
Scary Larry definitely feels very Terminator-esque.
I always like this bit where G7 is sleeping.
Yep.
And that visitor sticker there is for City Hall down in LA.
Okay.
Little-
Now, just to talk about that last scene, I think it's another happy accident when you're trying to, work within a tight budget where you're not actually going to show the violence, but instead you're going to cut to some other object and have blood spilling on it. It's a great way to let the audience play with their imaginations, but also save time and money not showing the person actually get hacked to death.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it just came down to not having the budget for prosthetics or for stunts or anything like that. And all of G7's practical, minus the voice, but all that stuff
Yeah, I remember, wasn't the setup, you had a laptop running Adobe After Effects.
Yep.
And all those graphics were stored in a composition, and then you had a feed going from the laptop into the TV, and someone would just puppet the eyes using the laptop, and then someone would puppet the mouth. So basically G7's puppeteered by two people.
Exactly. And yeah, basically the TV was the second monitor for the laptop, and I guess it's the program window or whatever
Yeah.
is what we dragged over there.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was all that was fun. And then there she is thinking about her.
Now, where do those props come from?
Those are Amazon.
Okay.
And that was like $25 for that pair, but I would say that those were like the most expensive props probably that we bought, like pound for pound.
Yeah, and I think, anyone who's watching this is probably thinking about making a movie themselves, or wondering how they can get into making a movie, or wondering in general, how does, just a couple of, people who aren't working for a Hollywood studio or some big production company, how do they pull this off? what's the secret to getting some of these things or making some of these things happen. And it's just nice to know those little tidbits like, oh yeah, we just got those things on Amazon. Or, you know, the video store just called them up and asked their permission. They said, yeah, just as long as you get out of here by the time we open for business. It's clear Sean has had a very, very rough day today. And it's about to get rougher.
We'll find you right
And he chose his own wardrobe, and I kind of like what he selected. You know, I like that. I like the Sean uniform throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Hello?
It's a space taser, right?
Space taser, and that's just the inside of a blow dryer.
Yeah, I like this moment coming up here too, and I really wanted to be sure this played well in the editing where, you know, Sean doesn't know if Zach is a good guy, but
Everybody on the ground.
that look right there where he's kind of processing, okay, well, this guy just saved my life. Maybe I should be on his side. And anytime you have a moment like that where you can explain story elements without using a lot of dialogue, that's key.
There you are.
Yeah, I dig that. Now, this was tough. This, you know, this scene was tough to shoot, I think, because we had so many people. We'd end up having Courtney here, so we have these 5 people in the scene, and it was just kind of an awkward scene to block and frame.
Yeah, I could see that. Anytime you have that many people and that many things to cover, it can be pretty challenging. And I think that's probably something that not a lot of people think about when it comes to filmmaking. They think that, oh, well, what's going to make filmmaking tough? It's going to be a lot of visual effects. It's going to be a lot of practical effects or special effects, you know, explosions and squibs and fight scenes. But no, it's really these scenes where you have a lot of characters in a room and they all have to be covered, and planning all those shots and the choreography, that's really what takes up the time and the energy and even money if you're paying people by the hour or if you're trying to feed people. It's covering a scene like this where you have so much going on.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from this one. It wasn't. And then here we are back at my folks' house. We got lucky with that nice sunset there.
Yeah.
And these shots at Shelby's, this was all like 3 in the morning or 2 a.m., something like that. It was a late night, and we had shot there all day, I think, too, for the kitchen scene.
Mm-hmm.
Hey kid, you gonna be okay here tonight? Alone?
I love that. Alone.
Let's go.
I feel like the way Sean handles this part kind of reminds me of the way I am, just being tired from watching 3 small kids all day, where he doesn't clean anything up. He just shuts the door, locks it, and just goes right to bed.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I guess we're trying to get him in the mindset that he's not only has Joe Video been killed, but now his buddy's been murdered in his house.
Yeah.
And
I mean, one thing I thought about, though, is that does this essentially mean that he gets to take over the pizza place? Because the 2 people he worked with there are both dead.
yeah, that's true.
And if we ever make another Death Blood, we'll have to establish that he's
He's the owner of the
Yeah.
Bigfoot Pizza or whatever.
the next Scary Larry. All right, so who plays JB here?
Oh, good
I'm
question.
pretty sure it was not me because I don't think I was there when that was filmed.
That could have been me.
No, there's the. Is that our first shot of the portal or the
Yeah.
pit in the
Yeah.
backyard of your parents' house? That whole thing was very, very impressive, and obviously we're going to see more of it later on in the film. But that day shooting it in the backyard of your parents' house was a lot of fun for a lot of different reasons. Not only because you had that cool pit playing the portal in the backyard, but because it was kind of like a party. Just people were kind of filtering in and out. We were making the movie, but people would come to visit. My wife and kids came
Yeah.
to visit, and they were hanging out for a while.
I remember that. I remember your family coming, and they, I think my mom made tacos that day or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah, that was actually a lot of fun. That was a good day. That was a day where, and honestly, like that was a day where I couldn't believe, because we were shooting on the porch while my parents were like set dressing the portal,
yeah.
and all we had seen before that was like a hole with a tarp, and so it was pretty cool to come out there and see it like done, and it was like, oh, cool.
There's a question: was that sunrise? Was that real, or was that lighting? The glow of the sun on Sean when he was waking up.
That was lighting. Good question.
All right. Well done, because it fooled me.
Yeah, good. Well done to Dar there. And this is one of the scenes where Zach's hair is more obviously not being cut throughout the summer, and you could see it at its. You could see it being, it's longer.
Yeah, and I was not here when we filmed this, but I do have fond memories of editing this scene because I think it was just a really fun moment where we established the camaraderie between Sean and Zach. Or Sean and JB, I should say. JB in human form. I think what I like about it too is that I feel like it's an aspect of a lot of these 80s sci-fi movies where, a kid or a young person bonds with an alien, they become best friends. So it was kind of cool to emulate that, whether you're talking about a movie like E.T. or Flight of the Navigator or even Mac and Me.
Yeah, I would think of those three. Maybe Enemy Mine. I can't remember. Does he become friends with an alien in the last Starfighter? I can't remember.
I don't think I've seen that one.
But definitely E.T.
You said she. Who is she? Who calls you JB? One of your people. Is that a shame?
Now, was JB's accent, I'm curious about that, how was it decided how his accent was supposed to come off? Because it's...
Sounds like Dracula, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the script says that he has some sort of alien accent, and then when Zach came in to audition, he just gave it that accent
Okay.
initially, and we just kind of stuck with it. I guess we just didn't overthink it, and I think it's fine. It's definitely very Bela Lugosi, right?
I like it.
But yeah, I not a whole lot of thought went into it, at least not on my part, but that's all Zach.
Yeah.
You propositioned her? Yeah, there's certain lines that Sean, we quote Chief Beef all the time, but I also do quote Sean quite a bit because he had some good lines, or he had some good deliveries, I should say.
Yeah. Now, from an editing perspective, one thing I could talk about, because when I was cutting the film, I think you handed me the rough cut and had all the takes picked of which performances you want, which was great and helped my process quite a bit. And then I think the first cut that I handed to you was significantly short, and I was basically trying to make the movie travel as quickly as possible. And in that cut, I cut it right after that, right after he shakes his hand and says Sean. And I don't think we saw anything else afterwards. But then we decided to restore some of that material.
Yeah, I think you brought it down to a nice length. I know that we ended up opening it up a little bit afterward, but I think it needed you to make the big cuts initially.
Yeah.
And kind of tighten it up. Although coming up is I think one of my favorite is my favorite. This segment that we're coming on to now is my favorite of all your editing contributions. And originally, as written, and I think in the version that I had handed over, these two scenes, which are just our most exposition-heavy scenes, where you have the good guys, these three characters plus G7 are going to talk about their plan and kind of catch each other up on everything.
Yeah.
And then in the script, then the next scene was that Chief Beef and Scary Larry were going to have kind of the antagonist's exposition moment. And you came up with the idea of intercutting them just to help it move, which I appreciated a lot because it was always it was really a pain to try to get through these before that.
Yeah, I think I even said this at the time. My inspiration for treating it that way was from Star Wars Return of the Jedi, where you have, the three different battles intercut with each other. I don't know if I could say that it was the first movie to do that, but that's where a lot of that inspiration comes from. And I think when I'm cutting whatever it is you're talking about, whether it's a film like this or a short film or even a corporate video or a social media video, I keep thinking to myself, I just kind of put myself in the eyes of the audience. If I feel like I'm starting to feel bored with the thing that I'm watching, it's possible an audience person will too. So I'm thinking, okay, it's got to move on to something else. But as you said, we couldn't lose any of that material because it's helpful information to have. So cross-cutting between the two scenes was the logical choice.
Read this. There aren't many records left from the incident remaining, but word is still out there.
We must defeat the dead blood points. You are the only one.
I feel like that's his kind of Yoda line, like in episode 3 of Star Wars, where Yoda says, "We destroy the Sith, we must.
Yeah.
We must defeat the Death Blood."
Well, and he's definitely the Ben Kenobi type character, or
Yeah.
the Yoda type character. But
No, but that doesn't.
yeah, I mean this
There is no technology or equipment.
I was pretty psyched when you showed us the new version here where we cut over to, and I think that a lot of the Chief Beef scene was tightened way down too, because we had originally recorded a lot more dialogue for that scene,
Yeah.
but I think that it got cut down to the bare bones, which helped, because really this is just the, up until this point of the movie, everything is kind of mysterious, and that ideally keeps people invested. And then from this point on, or after this point, it's just all the action where it, and the resolution. But this moment right here is just where we have to bring those together, and it's just a tough moment. But I do think that like all of this was a much longer bit, and I like how you just trimmed it all out. And
Yeah, and I think there's another thing happening too. It's not just exposition, but it's also building tension. Because now we're setting up what is the goal for the good guys, what is the goal for the bad guys, and they're kind of figuring that out at the same time, and seeing them kind of play against each other helps build the suspense and helps push the story forward a bit more.
My brain. Where is it?
This part may be hard to grasp. The lifeblood blade referred to Zakud 5, but in case you ever needed access to, she placed it in the seventh dimension. There are
have you ever seen Videodrome by David Cronenberg?
No.
That was another. Obviously, this movie is a lot tonally a lot lighter than Videodrome, but that was another movie that I liked the vibe and thought a lot about when we were making this.
And another thing about the postcard for the Tri-Valley area, when I think that really stood out for me too, where he's like, "Oh, the portal to the seventh dimension is right here in Pleasanton." I'm curious to know like what the city officials of Pleasanton, who became aware of the film, because a couple of people that work for the city, they saw the movie, didn't they?
We had the vice mayor,
Yeah.
come to the premiere, which was cool, and of course it was also published in the Pleasanton's newspaper. So I think a number of people. We also got to go to Pleasanton Rotary and kind of sell it to them a little bit. So yeah, I do wonder what they think about it. I mean, I think if nothing else, in the future it'll be fun to look at what an older version of Pleasanton, from 2018 looked like.
Yeah, see if the gas station is still there.
Yeah. Here you can see Len's hair is nice and cut. Yeah, and there was some crossing the line here too when we shot, and I think some of that got fixed in. And that's a good sound effect too. I wonder where that sound effect came from. I wonder if that was Mitch or if that was you.
Do you mean the beep on the remote?
No, like the sound of him being controlled, like that little pulsing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't remember.
First, we need to go to my basement. There is technology like for our mission. Where you parked, JP? The Pleasanton Ridge.
And I love that moment.
Yeah, where
the Pleasanton Ridge just carries so much weight. And I wasn't sure when I was cutting this if it was because of Bigfoot or because we just need to have some type of place that all the kids in the town feared. But I really like that moment.
It won't be long before it finds the bastard child of that damn woman.
This I'm thinking Home Alone 2.
Yeah.
When he's got the M on his...
Exactly.
And what if you had just rented Home Alone 2 but had never seen the first one? You'd have no idea why these guys hate the kid so much, but the scar in his hand would tell you something about his motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to transfer your backstory into a more.
And I do love Home Alone 2. But the first one, of course, is stronger.
I agree. So, now going back to the Pleasanton Ridge, this is the continuation of our long, hot, stressful day of filming at that location. And I feel like by the time we were filming this, we were getting pretty late in the day and we were starting to run out of time.
Yes.
The thing is that I think when we filmed this scene, for me personally, just seeing the dynamic between these characters, I really started to feel like, okay, yeah, we've got something special here. There's a really good, camaraderie between these three. I really see these three as like the heroes. Of course they bring Tally in to their fold soon, but I was like, okay, here's our Obi-Wan Kenobi and our Luke Skywalker and our Han Solo. And
yeah, and that I do remember we were. Oh, and see that burned. Did you have that footage by that
I did not. I actually, the insert shot that I used there when cutting was just a still image of the ground that I airbrushed in some black.
Okay. Yeah, we
never intending that to stay in. It just needed something to use. We didn't. Yeah, you didn't have the shot of the burned ground yet.
Yeah, there happened to be a fire at the creek, and so we just went and filmed that burned up dirt. I don't know how well it translates. It would have been nice. I mean, obviously, it would have been great to have a wide shot of all of them, but
yeah,
on the burned ground. Yeah, this was towards the end of the day, and I remember this bit. We did one shot of the wide.
Yeah.
And then everybody got one. Like, I seriously think everybody got one take of the close up.
Yeah, I remember this. We were losing light. We were running out of time. Even if we weren't running out of light, I think there was a time we had to get out of there. Like, wasn't there a time? There was a cutoff time we had to leave the Pleasanton Ridge, or something bad would happen. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we kind of had to sit down, look at the script, and it was like, okay, how do we film this last scene of them at the at the burn site as quickly as possible, and we came up with a plan to just do it from one camera angle and then just punch in for coverage. And that kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about, a lot of the challenge in filmmaking that takes up time and energy is covering scenes like that. It's not necessarily pulling off special effects and stuff.
Yes. And in the script, this whole segment was much longer, where there's kind of more of a play with Bigfoot, but this was one of the things where we were literally just ripping pages out and just saying, all right, we can't shoot this, we just have to go.
Which in the end is probably a good thing, because it helps you kind of cut your own movie down and not have it
No, yeah,
not
we
have
didn't
it
need it.
last too long.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. We definitely didn't need it. And I believe that initial shot of the car driving forward was Morgan driving.
Okay.
So Bigfoot was actually driving.
All right.
This is go spread your seed pizza, man.
Yep.
Maybe my favorite. Yeah, I like
that needs to be on a t-shirt.
And then this was just right out in front of my apartment.
Yep.
What do we do now?
Did this fly give you any trouble when you were editing?
I didn't notice it. I think that's just sort of another thing that comes up when you're making a film, is that when you're on set and you're dealing with a problem like that, like a fly buzzing around, it's going to perturb you and bother you. It might even bother the actors, but you never know if the audience or whoever else is working on it is going to pick up on that. Because I was on set this day, but I don't remember anything about the fly. I think it was because I was just sort of sitting off, reading this, watching the script and not paying attention to any of the logistics. But when I was cutting it, I didn't even notice the fly was in there. I like this moment. I feel like this is when Cindy Shane gets her moment of really, it's that moment like when Frodo grasps the ring in Lord of the Rings, and she's really taking charge of the situation and coming up with a plan to fight the Death Blood.
Yeah. And I like this montage sequence. Do you remember anything particular about... Oh, I guess it happens right after they recruit Tally.
Yeah.
Which King Kong has moved to Dublin, by the way, this comic shop.
Okay. What I do think about this scene, I love this moment, because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, it might be a trope in sci-fi where you have a girl who falls in love with an alien.
I definitely like that the side character falls in love with the side character.
Yeah.
Because so frequently, like, you count on the leads are gonna be romantically involved, but I do like when they give the romantic subplot to supporting characters.
Yeah. Is that gay 90s, that location?
That is a bar called Evie's in Dublin.
Oh, okay.
That we got thanks to McCartney. He knew the owner there.
Yeah, I remember this montage. It was a lot of fun to cut, and I love the very, very 80s feel to it. I think that if I had my druthers and we had a huge music budget, I'd want to use Mighty Wings by Cheap Trick, and I think I even said that on set, and Sean and I were walking around actually singing that song quite a bit during filming. But this music's great too. It's got the right feel. Yeah,
and I believe that Jake Russo did this music. That's Dar's favorite shot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I like the montage bit where they're coming up with the portal device, and I like that was all Tess right there teaching him how to high five.
Yeah.
And then here's my brother Mark in
this
other scene, and this is the bowling alley in Dublin.
The same one that we've had our company Christmas party at?
Yep, that's the one.
Right.
Earl Anthony. Which, to any eagle-eyed viewer who's looking, who's paying attention can see that that is the exact same house that Cindy Shane was babysitting at night.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe it's a neighborhood of tract housing. They've all got the same door.
And I think that was all shot in front of my apartment. I don't think that was at my parents' house. Because you could see that it's a different background back
Yeah.
there. But it's funny because even we forget what we shot where and what's kind of real or not after a while. And there's Gabe.
Oh, he was excellent in this. I actually remember being on set really trying hard not to laugh and ruin a take. Just watching his performance.
Wait. We need your help. Please allow us into your yard.
Now, where did you get the guns?
That shotgun is my dad's.
Okay.
And then the pistols are just plastic pistols I think I got on Amazon.
Okay. I guess I was wondering because I once shot a film in Napa and we needed a prop gun, and there's actually a prop rental house on the peninsula where I got it from. So I was curious if it was a similar type of thing.
So here, I believe that this is actually, of course, this is actually Zach for once in the alien head.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I guess I forgot that he was ever in the alien head.
Now the cut I was working with, we actually used Zach's practical sound of when he speaks the alien language. He does the duck noises.
Yeah, the Donald Duck.
He has a
Yeah, and that stayed for a while.
Yeah.
But I think Mitch ended up coming up with that final noise, which was cool.
And here comes the portal.
Yeah, and originally with the portal, I was like definitely thinking of like inspired by kind of a Cronenberg kind of monster where it's like a slimy, weird creature that lives in the ground and you have to go inside of it to go into another dimension.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a limit to what we could do with $0, so we just ended up basically digging like a grave-sized hole and filling it in with water and dry ice, but I think it still gets the message across, I guess. That
Absolutely. I think it's brilliant, and it was so fun, like I said, to be on set this day and have people come and visit. I think the one thing I was scared of is that one of my kids, when they came by to visit, they were going to fall into it or something like that.
Yeah, and I remember we filled it with a bath bomb, and also Deja, our makeup artist, had like some kind of caramel syrup in order to make the water black.
Oh, okay.
We have that scene because keep in mind at this point, the only person who she really cares about who's been murdered is her boss.
Yeah.
Because she didn't care about Madonna, and
Well, Madonna wasn't very nice to her.
exactly, Madonna wasn't nice to her, and she didn't know about the gas station guy.
Yeah.
So her motivation for actually risking her life to defeat the Death Blood, when you really think about it, is pretty limited. I think you did a good job cutting all this stuff too, and that's a good shot. Good for dark. That's a good looking.
Yeah. Again, the motivation here is to build tension. The main characters are figuring things out and finding solutions and doing their thing, but then you gotta show the antagonist is making progress too.
Yeah, and I think you helped capture the parallel that both the antagonist, who's Cindy, and the Death Blood are sort of entering into some kind of transformation, where she's going to get the Lifeblood Blade and where the Death Blood is going to transfer itself into Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And so at the same time that she's going into this portal, we have Scary Larry kind of entering into the forest.
Right. And from a sound design perspective, I like this idea that, I think there are different sound effects that were used here. from the cut that I did, but still was the same idea that anytime someone puts any part of their body into this thing, it's going to react.
Yeah, it kind of hisses.
Yeah.
He's got enough charge on this improvised machine to keep the portal door open for about 10 minutes.
And then?
Then,
Yeah, and then Dar and I went back to get all this POV stuff much later. Oh, and you really helped out with this scene too, because this we tried to get on set, and this was actually the most painful thing that we shot, I think. So, and that's true. That's another big area where we owe you a lot, because, you know, we had originally had it so that the full Scary Larry versus Bigfoot was all just one scene. And I mean, we wanted the movie to be corny, but it was so, like, it was so rough, it was so bad that it couldn't even, I mean, it was just, like, terrible. So I think having you intercut it so that we only see pieces at a time, and so that we don't see enough.
Yeah, I kind of, to refer to Star Wars yet again, it's kind of our Wampa ice Wampa ice layer scene, where in the original version of Empire Strikes Back you don't really see the Wampa, you just hear it growling, and they probably did that for budget reasons, but it actually kind of works because, yeah, and this, I love this. You just get that 80s synthesizer music just surging now that she's got the weapon.
Yeah,
It's almost like a Legend of Zelda moment.
It totally, yeah. We wanted it to sound like Mario or something, like she got it, and also, you know, in Princess Bride, when he gets the sword and he's looking for the he's looking to find how to open up the tree.
Yeah.
I might need backup. Hawkins, come alone.
Oh, poor Hawkins. I feel like he really gets the wrong end of the stick in this thing.
Yeah.
Now come the pop, boys.
Another one-liner right there.
The death blood is split into that large concrete structure somewhere downtown.
The old laboratory.
The death blood will strike again.
Let's go.
The old laboratory. That's very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. And of course, this location.
Yeah, we shot, so I think My Boss Was a Vampire there. We shot Death Blood there. Oh, and we shot multiple elements of Death Blood around that building.
Yeah, the production company we work with, they really scored by finding that place, and have thankfully been able to call it home for a number of years now, and hopefully for much longer.
Great caution. We thought Scary Larry was dangerous enough before, but now under Chief
Steve was on set for this scene.
Oh yeah, both of our bosses, the leader of our team. In case it isn't clear to anyone listening to this, a lot of us work together.
Yeah, I still think this idea of having a blood-sucking sword, I think, you know, if we ever had more money and could recycle this this concept, it would be a fun thing to do, but do it on a proper budget of a warrior who's got this great weapon, but the downside is it actually pulls from their bloodstream.
Yeah.
I think Deja did a great job with making with how the sword looked, but I could also see us doing like the Marvel version of it would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And I
death blood stigma is strong.
could talk about
Scary Larry.
editing this whole sequence where they're, you know, for lack of a better term, mucking around in this abandoned laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fun opportunity to play with suspense and tension, because, I mean, you know something's going to happen. You're not exactly sure what. You know that Chief Beef is nearby, and he's probably got Scary Larry on hand as well. And they're obviously looking for something, but they're going to be wandering around this creepy building. and just playing with the rhythm of the shots and cross-cutting between all of them as they split up was a really fun process to go through. And what I did was I kind of put myself in the shoes of the characters and thought about what was really creepy for me when I was a kid. You know, because when you're a kid, you're afraid of the lights being out. You don't like being in the dark, and it kind of reminded me of, you know, walking up the stairs to go to my bedroom with all the lights off and trying to get to my bed as quickly as possible and things like that. It was just sort of fun to play with that psychology as while cutting the sequence together.
I dig that.
Chief Beef, come in. Over.
Get on the ground. Chief, come in. Suspect has been spotted. Drop the knife, pizza man. I will shoot you. Halt!
I unfortunately wasn't there for this night of filming. How challenging was it to pull off this this action sequence between these two?
It wasn't too bad. We had a retractable knife. You know, we did have to have Ilya change shirts so that he'd put on, like, he had a shirt with 1 bullet hole and then I think a shirt with 3 or 4. You know, for the gunshots, all Wilcox had to do was fake a recoil, and then we did everything else in post, of course. But I think for the most part it was a pretty. This was another scene where there was supposed to be like a big sword fight between Ilya and Cindy. And it's just, we didn't have the stunt choreography for it, and so we just kind of trimmed it all down. But I think that's also good for the length. And then, you know, the whole adventure for Sean and Tally, because she was supposed to be killed off earlier, was rewritten and kind of added in late into the production. So a lot of this stuff is just sort of filler adventure where they're turning on electricity and plugging stuff in. It didn't actually, and it's ultimately not fruitful. You know, her goal is to try to disrupt his remote, but she, you know, she's gonna die before that can happen.
Yeah. And I remember this being a particularly difficult shooting time, especially from my perspective. Me being narcoleptic, I was literally falling asleep on set, which I feel bad about, but, you know,
Well,
thankfully everything still worked out.
yeah, and this was another 3 a.m. shoot right here, this server room scene.
Yeah.
And after a lot of shooting throughout Giraffe Space that night, and I do just remember, you know, yeah, it's tough because you do all this planning, you do all this prep, there's all this anticipation, but then when we were actually there shooting it that night, we were so tired, and we were just like, all right, let's get the shot, got it, let's get another shot, got it, and we were just, you know, it was kind of painful to move through a little bit.
Yeah, it was one of those nights where just everything was going wrong. People showed up late, and that's not to say anything badly about them. I mean, everyone has jobs and lives and stuff like that, and I feel like for most of the summer filming it, people have been pretty good about showing up on time and being there. But, you know, from whatever reason, people were late. I was late. I also unfortunately had the wrong version of the script because, like you said, that the climax was rewritten, but I had the wrong pages, so I had to fix that. And you know, then it was just getting later and later and later, and unfortunately, that's just what happens. But when you have a great crew of people like this who are committed to the final product, you know, in the end, it's not an issue.
Yeah, I feel that, and you know, I think it's also tough. We, particularly with the server room, you know, we didn't have production design going into there, and actually a lot of Giraffe Space, we just would find a room and start shooting, and didn't necessarily set dress it or anything like that.
Yeah.
And And I think that in the moment that can feel frustrating because you're like, you know, it might not be the look that you want or love, but we just didn't have the time to get it all right. All these POV shots were done afterward.
Yeah.
And then we got Bigfoot.
And I think this was the scene where I was sitting and I was falling asleep with my script in hand.
Well, and I remember. So yeah, this is what got trimmed way down.
Mm-hmm.
Where instead of a whole sword fight, she just comes out, and I think Princess Bride right here, where where he stabs the rodent.
Yeah, exactly. Size. Yeah, the RUS.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what I'm. And Chief Beef has his sword.
Yep.
We must find the others.
And I love that green light in the background. That was just luck.
And I love how JB doesn't know how to hold a gun.
Yeah, and both Tess and Zach came up with all that stuff. That wasn't in the script.
That's great.
To my memory, they just came up with like the idea that he didn't know how to high five or he didn't know how to hold a gun. They had kind of a fun grasp of their characters there.
Yeah, again, talking about when the actors contribute to those things, those are great moments.
Have you ever seen the '80s remake of The Blob?
I remember actually when it was being publicized on TV, but I never watched it. I think I was too young and it creeped me out because I remember the shot of it traveling through the pipes. Isn't there a part where it travels through the lead pipes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually is a good one. That's actually a good remake. This is, I think, my favorite in terms of editing. This is my favorite editing section.
Yeah.
Specifically, just the way it cuts together with him getting his head cut off, and the sound effect.
Yeah. And again, talking about how, you know, if you don't have a lot of money or time, you have to sort of cut around things. So you're not actually going to see the knife go inside JB.
Yeah.
It's going to cut to the result, and he's bleeding blue blood. It's a great touch. Also from a production logistics standpoint, we filmed this on a different day. It wasn't filmed on the same day as Tally's death scene. And I remember filming JB's death scene was a lot less painful than filming Tally's death scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember that scene was tough because the wardrobe was just coming apart for Morgan when he was. Oh, I think the gun stuff works.
Yeah.
Honestly, even though it's so fake, I think it actually passes.
Yeah, and that's another one-liner that I think got quoted around the office quite a bit. You know,
yeah,
as long as HR wasn't listening, everyone commented on that. Like when Chief Beat gets shot, he just goes, "Damn it!" He doesn't really feel any pain. He just gets annoyed.
And this is another one of my favorite lines: "Death, blood, Bigfoot."
Yeah.
Also, why she doesn't get the death blood and then turn into a zombie guy, I don't know.
Well, I always thought it was because she wasn't actually killed by the Bigfoot. She was killed by the big shard of metal that was getting tossed around.
Well, that could be. Yeah, that could work.
Yeah. And I think, you know, from a storytelling standpoint, yeah, this is a cheesy, you know, silly movie, but you still want to think about what's going to motivate the characters. And if there's anything that's going to motivate Cindy Shane to fight this last battle, it's the death of her roommate.
Right. Yeah, that's totally true. This is really the first thing that happens that she should actually care about.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it shows that she's a good person, that she just wants to defeat the Death Blood just because it's bad.
This was a fun night.
Yeah.
It could have been stressful, but it wasn't. We had some fun people on set, and it was a nice night. It wasn't too cold. But I do remember at one point there was someone who was either intoxicated on alcohol or drugs, and they were rapping very close by. And I remember, actually, this was the night we had Seth on set functioning as a PA, and he actually heard what he was rapping, and we actually have a video of him rapping the song.
Yeah, I do remember a guy who was wasted who came walking through the set.
Yeah. I think
Um,
Morgan actually wound up calling the police, not because he was trying to get him in trouble, but because he was worried about his well-being.
oh, I think I remember that.
It was actually, I think it was in this parking lot right here.
Yep, it was like basically this scene.
And wasn't this the last night of principal photography?
Yes, it was, because then we moved from here to the dairy, and the dairy was the end of the shoot.
Yeah,
I think that Bigfoot silhouetted looks good.
absolutely. And also was a great opportunity to cover up how cheesily put together the costume is.
Yeah.
I feel like this is our moment, kind of like, refer to Star Wars again, where, Luke Skywalker loses Biggs. Then it's all up to him to destroy the Death Star. So now Cindy's lost her roommate. Now she's losing Sean, although he's not dying. He just can't go on. He must do this alone.
That's a good comparison. There's not enough love that goes to Biggs Darklighter these days.
Yeah.
And this is kind of her last dream. And then we just figure, she could only imagine her mom as she knows her from this photograph.
Right.
So that's why her mom is like her age.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious, has anyone ever called that out? That is like, okay, so she's her mom, but they're the same age.
I think anybody who makes it this far in the movie is just accepted. I think they just sort of accept what we show them there, and they say whatever.
Well, okay, well, look at it from an audience perspective. Let's say there was a Deathblood 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
The audience would know Sarah Shane looking like that, not like some old woman.
Right.
So I think it makes sense on many levels why she would appear that way.
This is also very rodent of unusual size right here.
Yeah.
But she's given up too much blood.
Yeah.
The dairy is a great... I'm glad we shot there. Jesse Takins, who's a friend of mine who owns it, was cool to let us shoot there. But it's like, if you're going to do any Pleasanton thing, the dairy is kind of like not only the geographical center, but it is the cultural center of Pleasanton, I think.
Yeah, and I think these shots of these Pleasanton landmarks at night was a great way to bookend the film. It opens with that montage of all those locations. That's kind of how we end it too.
Yeah, I agree, and I do like all the neon lights and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like that really, really, really solidifies how evil Chief Beef is. Like, this poor girl's dead. He's like, yes.
And he fist bumps.
God.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
Yeah, I absolutely love that bit. And he found some death blood still alive in the paw.
All units report in. Got a double homicide down here at Main and Rose. Send all units. Over.
I wonder who he plans to blame those murders on.
And then we kind of back out
Yep.
through the neon lights. And then there's a little epilogue.
Mm-hmm. I also want to note how pleased Chief Beef looks with himself here. It's all smiles.
Yeah, I do like that he basically wins. I mean, I guess not entirely, but he
Or
basically
does
wins.
he?
I like this shot too. Of him in his blanket.
Yeah.
And you have gone on to work with. Can you tell me about that? You worked with Lauren Lane
Oh, yeah.
after Death Blood.
Yeah, so I was impressed with her performance playing the anchor, and I know that she was on an episode of one of those HGTV shows, and because she's a real estate, I think she works in real estate out in Silicon Valley, and I just wanted to get her involved in the project that I worked on after, we were done filming this, and it was a kind of a similar type of deal where her role wasn't super major, but it was important, and I just thought she was a great person to have involved.
Yeah, she was great to work with. I'd love to work with her again if possible.
Now here's our setup for a possible Death Blood 5. Yeah, and again with the book ending, I like that we call back to the beginning of the film with Sean walking down the road and giving the food to the homeless person.
Yeah, I figure he's got to carry on what she, who she was. You can see Sean's got a nice haircut, and he took the time to get a haircut. Yeah.
And he's possibly running the pizza place now.
Yeah.
And this was one of the first things we shot, wasn't it? I mean, it wasn't on the first day, but it was the first day filming in downtown Pleasanton, right?
Correct. Yeah, this was all shot on the same day, I believe. Minus that shot of the palm trees. We got that afterward.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it's funny, like a simple little shot like that, it's the fact that all that had to be done second unit really does show how pressed for time we were, that we couldn't even point the camera at a pair of trees. We were so busy trying to get everybody out of there.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the keys to saving time is you can save those insert shots for later. And that's the end. Or is it?
I agree with you. I think the trailers are my favorite part.
Yeah. Now, is that actually New York right there?
That's Livermore. Yeah, doesn't it look good?
I was kind of half serious. I actually didn't know if he flew out to New York and filmed that, because he did take a trip to New York at one point.
Yeah, we actually just kept the camera low enough to not see the sky. There it is. That's Death Blood. And of course Darwin.
Yeah, I've said this before, I'll say this again. I think this was just such a perfect project for all of us to work on, because it was a great way to make a film, but do it in a way where, yeah, we had to hustle and make it happen, but it was a lot of fun. And the fact that it was based on cheesy 80s horror, like, I think when I asked you when we first started working on it, or when I first started editing it, it's like, what is the primary film should I take inspiration from in terms of cutting it? And you said it was Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh yeah.
And so that gives us a lot of safety net, whereas, if it comes off as stupid, that's okay, because that's kind of the point. I mean, if you take it seriously, great. If you don't, that's okay. And so it took a lot of the pressure off with making this.
Yeah, the stakes were low on this project, I think. And that, it was really a test run for a lot of things. Getting different people to work together, exercising certain muscles, skill set wise and everything. But there really wasn't too much stress about anything,
Right.
At least not that I remember. I mean, of course, there's some amount of stress that's always happening, but most of these bloopers are lens.
Yeah, and I think what was cool too, and this is always a risk anytime you make, a low budget indie film, nobody threw up their hands and said, no, I'm not going to do this
right
anymore, or they didn't check out, halfway through the film and ditch us. They didn't get fed up with the process. Everyone was committed, which was really cool.
well, we were so fortunate that everybody had our back that way, you know.
Yeah. So now I remember when we premiered this at the Vine Theater was such an amazing event. I mean, you and Darwin managed to pack that place, which was impressive. And it's a pretty big theater, and it's a really nice one too in downtown Livermore. But for me, at this point, I was panicking and running to the bathroom because I had to go number one very, very badly. And I actually missed the photo. So if anyone ever sees the photograph on social media of the entire cast and crew, I'm not in it because I am in the bathroom.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me to do the commentary,
Yeah.
CDP. This is a lot of fun.
No, thank you, Billy, and thank you, everybody, for listening to the editor's edition of the Deathblood 4 commentary. Hope that you learned something cool, and thank you, Billy, for reminiscing.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a lot of fun. All right.
All right, signing off.
Speak.